Oh, it's the tram crash!
It is the tram crash. Happy tram crash near anniversary, everybody. It's
Yay!
nearly 15 years since Coronation Street celebrated its 50th anniversary, so we thought that we would rewatch the tram crash for the first time since then.
Merry Christmas casualties.
There were one or two casualties in the tram crash. We're going to be talking about that today. We are doing all things. I'm really excited about this. This is something that's been like on the agenda for years, hasn't it? For us,
Yeah.
let's just watch the tram crash again.
Yeah, why not?
And there's like, well, when do we do it? What's the anniversary? And December's always so packed, but we thought we can't let another multiple of 5-year anniversary go past.
We could have waited for the 20th, but we didn't want to make you do that.
No.
Also, we maybe have a bit of a tie-in with the Corrie because they might be doing. It looks like they might be doing a little bit of a stunt.
They might be doing a little bit of a stunt.
They've released the trailer.
So.
I haven't watched it. I've heard tell.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to beat the tram crash, because the tram crash really, I'm going to say, one of the most amazing things that has ever happened on television. Plus, part of it was live. So why don't you tell us a bit about it, Michael?
Well, this isn't an information podcast particularly. What we've got planned, I'm starting to be a bit stuttery like Norris at the moment. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm just
Are you nervous?
very happy to be talking about this at long last. We've got 2 weeks worth of tram crash stuff for you on the podcast.
We've got 3 weeks if you're a patron.
Yeah, exactly. Patrons
You've
got a little bit
yours.
already.
Yeah.
Because the anniversary, of course, is next week. It's Coronation Street is celebrating its 65th anniversary on Monday's episode coming up. But basically, this week, we're going to talk all about what we thought about watching the tram crash and all the different stories, what it was like watching it again after all this time, whether it lived up to our expectations or what we remembered, all that kind of jazz. Next week, we're going to be delving into the making of and a bit more behind the scenes, production stuff. We bought the tram crash DVD, so we'll talk about all the extras there. And we're going to be looking through the Conversation Street archives to find some little interview snippets with actors and other behind-the-scenes folk where I've talked to them about the Tram Crash episodes over the years. So we're going to insert them in just to beef up that episode with a bit of reuse and recycled content.
Yeah, those will be things you've already heard, but why not use them again?
Why not? And you never know. Maybe there's going to be some new snippets from other people who were there.
There might be.
15 years ago
might be.
that we haven't spoken to before. You know, just a little bit of new content tease for you there as well. But yeah, we're talking this week about what we thought. And this was 2 weeks ago, I think we watched it now. We got our YouTube on, didn't we? And
well, hang on, look. If you're listening to this, there's a very good chance that you know, but you may not know that for the 50th anniversary of Coronation Street,
good point.
They decided, that's what I was trying to get you to say.
What's the tram crash?
They decided to do a special live episode on the anniversary, but the whole week was going to be a series of episodes that tied in to this live episode. And in this live episode, well, during the week of the tram crash, the joinery exploded, which is where the bistro is now, and then that blew up the tracks for the tram that goes over the top of the viaduct. You never see that anymore.
You hear it.
You hear them going over, but I think they're a bit too scared to appear on the screen because they might blow up again. So the tracks blew up, and then the poor tram driver, it wasn't his fault. Everyone remember.
He tried to press the button, the brake.
He drove his tram, and he's fine, into Coronation Street, and devastation occurred over the course of that week. Yeah,
there was episodes Monday to Friday, hour-long live on Thursday, 2 half-an-hour episodes on Friday. Was there more 2 on Monday? I can't remember. I don't think there was. So we sat down in
action.
It was a week of action, and we sat down in a couple of sessions last week. We rewatched them.
Yes, and various storylines all collided in this very exciting stunt. And then like I said before, if you listen to the Patreon, it's like one of those sci-fi implosions and then an explosion. Everything kind of like sucked into the vacuum and blew back out again. So there were ramifications for storylines.
It was a massive turning point.
It really was. It wasn't just a stunt. It was a series of storylines that all had something exciting. Literally, you couldn't take your eyes away. At every single scene, something really exciting was happening or developing in a storyline. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to talk about today is those storylines and some of the things we thought about when we watched it, and maybe what we can recall about watching it the first time.
Yeah, I mean, what do you remember? Because my memory is very hazy, going back 15 years now, getting on a little bit now. I mean, we watched it back in our old house, didn't we? And I'm pretty sure that for the live episode, you made a Betty's hot pot for dinner that evening. But I don't have massive. We must have, switched it on and watched it every day and just been blown away by it. But I don't remember how much we'd been spoiled beforehand.
No, it's difficult to really recall what happened. But there were, like I said, there were so many parts, moving parts of this. So you've got Leanne and Peter were going to get married. Mm-hmm. You had then Nick, who didn't want Leanne to get married to Peter, and you had Carla, who didn't want Peter to get married to Leanne.
Yeah, that was one big chunk of it.
There was that big drama. Then you had Ashley and Claire and the boys, and she wanted to go to France.
Yeah, they were going to move to France, and they were getting ready to go in the next few weeks. But sadly, Ashley popped his clogs.
Then we had John Stape, who was the hapless serial killer of Corrie.
Although, I mean, he claimed his first victim this week.
That week.
Yeah.
During the tram crash.
Yeah.
And he was up to no good, and Charlotte, who was his kind of, she fancied him.
Yeah, that's it.
And
she was a little obsessed.
Came to a grisly end.
Boiler.
You also had Kevin, who was having an affair with Molly Dobbs, who was Tyrone's wife,
mm-hmm.
who had a baby, and Tyrone thought that this was his child, but actually it was Kevin's child.
Yeah, so that all got revealed
this
towards
was all
the beginning
a big
of the
secret,
week.
And then it came out, and there was that really massive tension when Kevin didn't know whether to say anything about whether it was his kids. Oh, it's amazing. And then you also had Becky and Steve, who were trying to adopt Max from Kylie,
Max.
Who was trying to sell him to unburden herself and also get some cash. Turns back up, demanding more money from Becky and Steve, and Steve's like, we don't have it. Becky's like, but we need to have this baby. And so she gets up to no good as well. What else happened?
There was various little mini rescues during the week as well, weren't there, that we can touch on as we go and discuss our thoughts on it. I suppose it's funny that it's been so long since we watched the tram crash. We've certainly talked about it on and off, and some of our Patreon top 5s that we've done have included tram crash. And as I said earlier, some of the interviews we talk about it, because it's one of these Corrie storylines that has just stuck with viewers, hasn't it? And there's so many stories that people have got, that there's a wide variety, a gamut of opinions about. But I think the tram crash is pretty much universally loved and praised, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it really is. I genuinely think that they did a fantastic job of this. This is probably Corrie's best moment and one of the most exciting television moments. And I really don't think outside of the Corrie fandom that it's gone down in television history, but it really, really should have done, because we're going to get more into the production side of things, but just the logistics of doing a live episode in the middle of filming other episodes that they'd already previously filmed the week around this live episode, then had to redo everything for the episode. And
we'll talk more about that one next week. Yeah.
Live episodes are always really scary anyway for the actors, but some of the stuff that they were expected to do for this was incredible. There's always a kind of like manic. I always think there's a manic energy for any kind of live television, and I think that soaps have a kind of history in this country of doing live episodes. Even The Bill did one.
Yeah.
I don't think they do them as much anymore. I think they're too expensive, and I also think that the actors don't want to.
Well, EastEnders had their live earlier this year, didn't they, for the 40th anniversary?
It's not like it's like a yearly thing for, it's not even like a decade thing.
No, well, Coronation Street, they started off where every other episode was live, but that only lasted, a couple of months or so, didn't it? And then they had massive gap until the live on the 40th, and then you had your 50th, which is this, and then there was one a couple of years later for the ITV's 60th. But we're going on, it's been over a decade now, I think, since the last live Coronation Street, but this is definitely the biggest and the best, and the one that people remember the most. And I think it's one of these stories that if you were to ask a random Corrie fan who's been a fan of the show for over a decade, over 15 years, say, well, what do you like best about Corrie? What's one of your favourite stories? Feels like tram crash is often brought up, but not because it's just an easy answer, but it genuinely is lots of people's favourite moment, or up there in their favourite moment. It's like people say, I really like Richard Hillman as a story, and sometimes it feels like you have to say particular things, but this genuinely was absolutely monumental.
Yeah.
And so it had a lot to live up to when we were going back to rewatch it recently.
I think the last time they did a live episode, that was Callum and Kylie and
That's
Sarah
it, yeah.
killing Callum and burying him
Yeah,
under.
well, a long way back.
That was nowhere near as ambitious as this. I mean,
that was 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago this year.
Yeah, but we did a live reaction to that on our YouTube channel if you fancy going back in time. We've never spoken about this before properly because we weren't doing the podcast.
No.
This was 2 years before podcast started.
That was the funniest thing. We were I can't believe this was only a year and a half before the podcast started, and Coronation Street did really feel like a bit of a different beast back then. I was almost like, you got your BC and your AD, and your BC is before Conversation Street, and I don't know what AD stands for, but it was funny going back in time and seeing, if only we'd started a year and a half earlier, we could have kind of captured that when it first happened. What would you say before we did this rewatch, what stuck with you the most? Which moments did you like, I always remember this and I hope it lives up to my expectations?
I remembered Molly being left by Sally, and I remembered Kylie digging through the remains.
No, that was Becky.
Becky, sorry, digging through the remains of the corner shop to gather the money. Everyone remembers that shot of Ken standing alone. And I said to you earlier, like, this is kind of really dumb shot, really, because you've got Ken Barlow, who's even 15 years ago a bit of an elderly gent, standing up while everybody cowers around him, like he's the kind of Thor of Coronation Street, and he's going to beat up the tram
with the tram.
The tram's falling into the fiery pits. There's rubble everywhere. All of the characters, including like extras, are huddled at his feet like they're expecting him to do something because he's like the main character. But in real life, it's like, sit down, Ken. What are you going to do?
Take the weight off your feet. You've just been blasted off.
I know.
Off onto the cobbles.
So
I think I agree that I think the most memorable thing for me, and the one that I always keep coming back to, it replays in my mind, was Molly and Sally and her death, and Sally leaving her to die after finding the truth about Jack's parentage.
Brilliant.
But also, I would say that the shot where John whacks Charlotte on the head and then the wreath falls off because she's running to the door festive. And the wreath falls off as she, it was, so I was...
I mean, that shot of Ken standing and the rubble and the tram and the fire and everyone huddled, that is so iconic that it's even on the staircase at the Coronation Street.
Yes,
building.
It is, isn't it? You're right.
So, as far as cinematography goes, it's a really fantastic shot. It's just like, character-wise.
I'll tell you something else that I really remembered, and I don't know whether it hit quite the same way in the rewatch, was the deathbed wedding. And I do remember watching that. As I say, I don't have really kind of vivid memories of watching it the first time round. But one thing I do remember is sitting there as Peter is gasping what seems to be his last breath, kind of cough out his wedding vows in one syllable excerpts. Bursts, with the chaplain there kind of trying to hurry them along a bit because he's thinking, oh my God, you're going to be meeting your maker soon, and the rest of the family around the bed, and Leanne being, oh my God. That scene there didn't hit me quite as much as I thought it would the second time round, but I think it was because the first time I genuinely thought, I think Peter could die here.
Yeah.
And just knowing that he wasn't gonna die and he would be okay to live and drink and collapse many other times in the future, it just didn't quite hit in the same way. It was still a really, really fantastic performance.
Yeah.
But compared to the murders, I think the deaths, the actual deaths, are what's stuck with me and lived up to expectations the most.
Chris Gascoigne had appeared as Peter in the 40th anniversary live episode 10 years previously. So he'd first appeared 10 years ago, and it would have been very neat and easy for them to have killed Peter off. Chris Gascoigne's Peter dies exactly 10 years to the day, to the time that he arrived. That would have been really, really fun and neat. But
it would, but I don't think the average viewer would have particularly cared or noticed about that.
No, but the they did promote this as, what did you say?
4 funerals and a wedding.
That's right. So we knew what the wedding was going to be. I mean, the whole thing opens up with the stag do and hen night for Leanne and Peter.
Yeah,
so
that's what kicks off. That's a catalyst.
One of the biggest things that makes this feel like a different Coronation Street to the one we watch now is the joinery. The joinery set, which is where the bistro is, owned by Nick.
Yeah,
and it's like a bar. It's like a proper. It looks like it's underground. It's not. It's dark. It's got pink lights.
That's what's something that surprised me the most, because we were talking just then about what stuck with us the most. But I also wanted to go over like what surprised us or what had we forgotten about. And I think the inside of the joinery back in late 2010, I'd totally forgotten just how kind of grimy and grungy.
It wasn't grimy and grungy. It was just dark and kind of, it was more of a night scene kind of nightclubby feel. Whereas
it was nowadays it's more of a kind of upmarket.
The bistro, the speed dial and the pub are basically all places you can have a family meal. You would not take the Platts for their weekly outing to have a meal together.
Let's go to the treat. No, so I was really surprised at how different that is. But it was only in existence for a couple of months. I think the joinery had officially opened very early on in 2010, but then it closed down because I can't actually remember why. But it had reopened again in November. So really, it was only in business, if you like, for a month before it blew up. So that's probably why we'd completely forgotten
very many memories
just
of
how dark and neon it was.
It did feel like a nightclub because even behind the bar, Cheryl was there. I can't remember who else. Nick was there. And there was this like love
Kieran
triangle.
was in the kitchen, wasn't he? Because he was the one that was complaining about the gas pressure not being up to snuff, and this is what then was a bit of a clue for something wrong with the gas.
I think a lot of people forget that there was the joinery explosion that caused the tram crash.
Yeah, because we call it Tram Crash Week, and really on that Tuesday episode at the very tail end of it, it was the explosion and then the tram crash, but it doesn't ever get referred to as Explosion Week, does it? It's the visual of the tram careening off the tracks, ploughing through the corner shop, the other end lifting up into the air,
Titanic. Slamming
down. It is onto the cabin. That's what people remember. But actually, the explosion itself was pretty iconic as well. So I didn't.
And that's why that brick. If you go to the old set, the Grape Street set, the Key Street set. If you go look at the arches, the opposite to where that cafe is, that used to be the medical centre, they put those bricks in, and they put, like you said, they've put those in to the bistro. You will see different coloured bricks on that set, a tribute to that explosion.
Yeah.
And butter wouldn't melt, would it, in Leanne and Nick's mouths? But.
No. Was there anything else that kind of surprised you, or that you'd like completely forgotten the details?
I think it's really funny that the core characters in this episode are still in the show, like Nick, Carla, Leanne, Peter. I still think of him as a character in the show, even though
he's clinging on the
like
periphery,
a spectre,
isn't
he? Like the ghost of the feast, even though that's what Becky was described as, and David. And then you've got other people who all just end up dying. You've got Roy. You've got Julie, who only just died in the show this year. She's in it. You've got Sean behind the bar. He's
You're right.
still
There
in the
really
show.
were a lot of core characters that were there back then. I mean, I'm still watching it on Classic on ITV3 at the moment, which is only 3 years behind at the moment, I think. And a lot of the cast are there. But yeah, it was funny seeing just how many of the main players there are still rocking it now. But I had forgotten some of the details, like all the stuff about the Nick and Carla and Leanne and Peter, who's been out with who and who's secretly having an affair with who. I'd kind of forgotten that element to it, and I don't think it's particularly interesting. I think even in the early days,
the Weatherfield washing machine, because it was just those characters going around and around and around, and then you pop two out and they're together suddenly, and then you shove them back in and put the spin back on, and then another two pops
I think
out.
you described it as like they go around and around, then come out even muckier than they went in. I'd forgotten that, but yeah, I'd forgotten. I found it odd that it was Ben Price's Nick, even though
I did.
I knew it was. I was still surprised to see him. Like, oh, And look how young he looks.
Oh, bless
But
him.
I remember when Ben Price's Nick started, I was like, look how old he looks, because he's played by an actor 10 years older than how Nick
Maybe
is.
he's a vampire.
So that was really funny. And the other big surprise for me was David Platt's beard, because he was even rocking a goatee back then. And I think he did, after that, have a phase of clean shaven again, didn't he? He didn't have that beard all the time, but it was like he was trying it out. He was doing a test run for his now permanent facial hairage. And I thought that was very peculiar. I didn't expect to see that.
I mean, we'll talk about production next week, but continuity-wise, who was it? Was it Chris Collinson?
Phil Collinson was the producer.
Like, we just call Jack to the office and go, Jack, you've got your beard now. We're coming up to the week. Are you going to have this beard in like 3 months when we do the live? Because you have to keep it.
I really can't remember how long he kept that particular version of the beard. So that surprised me. Talking about, what we were saying about the cast, it really did feel like they were quite a solid bunch. There weren't too many characters in there that were kind of throwaways or have since been forgotten about, were there? I think kind of the most obvious characters that were very much of their time and most people wouldn't even remember them now were Chris and Cheryl.
Yeah.
So this was the Grey family.
Those were to do with
Lloyd. Yeah, they lived at number 13 for a little bit, and their story had been that Chris had been going out with Cheryl, and then Lloyd went out with Cheryl. Chris pretended to have a brain tumour, or he got a brain tumour, I think, and then pretended he wasn't. It was worse than it actually was.
It's one of those old switcheroos.
Yeah. So that very much, their inclusion did still very much date it to a previous era. And there are a couple of other no-name kind of characters.
Don't say no-name.
Well, not non-icons, shall we say.
Yeah.
People like, even like Eddie Windass.
People who wouldn't be top 100.
Yeah, not top 100s. Even, Sean appeared in it. Sean Powers, Sophie's girlfriend.
Dr. Carter.
Yeah, yeah.
It's probably his finest moment, actually.
It probably was. Well, I don't know. Some people might think that the old Full Monty
now,
a couple of years later was there. But...
Some fan favourites who, again, might not be well remembered, but definitely cult ones are like Graham, Kieran, Auntie Pam. They all got to appear, didn't they?
You're right, and I think that they're on a bit of a different level than those other ones that we've just said. I suppose Sian is a bit of a culty fan favourite to a certain demographic, isn't she?
She was so close to being Corrie's first gay wedding.
Yeah.
It's such a shame. It really is such a shame that they didn't go through with it, because I think that would have been an important milestone. But I think maybe we're going to see.
I think we've probably got one coming. Yeah. Graham has become a total cult legend, and everybody says, "Oh, they love Graham." He was, there in our top 30 on the Core Eliminator this year, on the listener voted one, wasn't he? Kieran McCarthy. I don't know. Is he a legend?
I think he's one of those ones that people look back on fondly, and I think if you're a Corrie actor, I don't think you can hope for more than that. Being an icon or a legend, that's definitely what you want to be, but saying I really like that character, I think that's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a nice thing to...
I don't think many people have got too many bad things to say about Kieran.
No,
it's look, it's Kieran. Yeah. I think that was my reaction. I was like, Kieran's back again.
Yeah, look, he's a cheeky chappy.
He was kind of on and off the show for a little while, and it was nice to have him appear in it. Would you say, though, overall, that 2010 Coronation Street felt more like classic Corrie, or does it feel more like modern Corrie?
No, classic. It felt like classic.
What was the distinction there for you? Because you straight away you answered that.
I don't know how to answer it, really. I don't know. I think that I do think that there's micro eras now, because I think that between when we started the podcast and up until probably 5 years since COVID, I think Corrie's changed. I think you can say post-COVID Corrie is a very different beast.
McLeod.
Well, it's to do with like the production and the 6 episodes and the block filming and new characters and budget restrictions. There are so many things behind the scenes that I think have changed Corrie forever, maybe. For good or bad, we're not talking about that now, but it's up to you to decide what you think. But it did feel like there were fewer characters. There's a smaller cast. It wasn't hugely smaller, but it felt like there was a core.
It did feel like there was a core, but for this week, it felt like everybody kind of got to
Pitched
go.
in, yeah.
Everybody got a turn in the spotlight. And
But
people...
what I'm just to clarify what I mean is like at the moment it feels like every year there is a certain like combination of characters. Since COVID, there's a combination of characters, and these are the show for this year, and they change every year. So you got Dee Dee like carrying the show for a whole year, and now this year, you know,
Lisa.
That's what I mean.
Lisa and
Lisa's
Carla
now
this
moved
year,
into
and then Kit.
that spotlight, and it never used to be quite as stark a swap. Like Lauren, you know, Lauren and Dee Dee.
But then you could also pick out a load of names for these days and say, well, we've barely seen them this year.
That's true.
Like, you know, like
names.
Artoya,
Big
for
names.
example, for 2025.
Rita, where's she been?
Well, I mean, she's getting on a bit, isn't she?
She might as well still be lying on the floor of the shop.
Yeah, I think that's a really big difference. And maybe, you know, if we look through 2010 as a whole, we might notice some characters appearing more than others, because they kind of had to throw everyone into it. Everyone who wanted to, I suppose, into this live episode. But it really did feel like what people say about classic Corrie is the community feel, and this is what this had. It was the whole community banding together to try and either you know, get away with some nefarious deed or to help each other out for the most case, and everyone was pitching in. You had them either or standing there screaming, or they were crying away somewhere, or helping out in the cafe, because it was Roy and Hayley opened the cafe up as like a feeding station, didn't they? For this week,
station sounds like a bunch of horses with nose bags.
Yeah, in the troughs, and then you had the Rovers, which was manned by Sean. He kind of took over there, didn't he, a little bit? And Julie was there at the Rovers.
Yeah.
And I think that Corrie doesn't quite have that, and I think that does make quite a bit of a difference.
One thing that's funny is today my parents came over and the Tram Crash DVD was on the coffee table, and my mum goes, "Oh, Tram Crash, what's that?" And I said, "Oh, Corrie, blah 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 blah," and she went, "Oh, they had a train crash on Corrie, didn't they?" And I was like, "Yeah, they did. Like in the 60s, there was a train crash on Coronation Street
Over the same viaduct,
and it did feel like the 2010 Tram Crash week captured a tiny little bit of that ghost of Blitz spirit, because in the 60s they had a few big communal disasters. They had like the gas thing where they had to go, and then they had the train crash, and everybody had to gather together and like huddle somewhere. And it felt like they were all reacting to it like, this reminds me of the war, because the war was, you know, like 20 years previous, 15, 20 years before. They all would have lived through this together, and they all would have known what to do. And that kind of like community spirit of the face of adversity, it felt like there was a bit of that in the Tram Crash episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what people love most about Coronation Street, the community feel, and they just tapped into it so perfectly for this. I absolutely loved it. Tell you one thing, though, that did have it dragging and kicking and screaming towards being a little bit more modern Corrie for me. It's the same bloody intro sequence.
I thought you were going to say that.
Seriously,
Can I just give
Coronation Street, change your intro. How can we look at something that feels so classic and so long ago in many ways, and they've still got the same horrible intro sequence at the beginning that I've always hated?
Okay, can I just say that I don't know if this is the case, and we won't know until it's aired, but I do wonder if, because they're doing the Soap Power Hour, because Corriedale is like launching a new era of soaps, and you've got Emmerdale and Corrie, I wonder if they're going to do a new intro sequence.
I wonder. I mean, Corriedale itself will no doubt have its own...
But you see what I mean? Like, seriously, if they're going to do it, I mean, it's overdue, but a new intro sequence, I would love to see that happen for Corriedale.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other things that were maybe surprising.
We got the first appearance of Paul Kershaw.
Oh, yes, that was a bit of a surprise.
I wasn't expecting
Again, it was one of these things that I knew... Deep down, in theory, I knew that he was the one there for Molly. But Paul Kershaw, who'd later go on to be Racist Paul.
Yeah, and also the white man Paul, the boyfriend of Eileen Grimshaw.
Yeah, he made his debut there in that very, very iconic scene of her underneath the rubble. So that was quite a surprise. I was a little surprised with my reaction to Mary. And I did speak to you about this, and I do wonder what you thought about it. But she kind of swans in halfway through the week, doesn't she? And spends most of her time there at the cafe. I found her really irritating in this. And I don't think I did back then.
This is what surprises me about about your reaction to Mary, because I don't think she's changed all that much, but you maybe have.
My tolerance for her has changed.
Maybe you've changed as a person and she hasn't.
Because as she comes in and she's all kind of like tra-la-la-ing about Norris, and I don't know, you just don't get the idea that. I get that Coronation Street wanted to have a bit of lightness in amongst the dark, misery, dramatic scenes of, people's corpses being brought out of the bistro and stuff. But it just felt to me very inappropriate. And how I get now a lot of the time with Mary, although I didn't in Monday's episode, I will say I thought she was great in that, but a lot of the time with Mary now I'm just like, okay, whatever, you do your story
in
about
Monday's
your mum and off you
episode
go.
in 2025.
Yeah. And with this I was like, oh Mary, just shut up. I don't need you. But I don't think I felt it back then. Did you? What did you think of Mary in this? Did it not bother you?
No, not at all. I think she was fine, and she's always been fine. And I don't think she's like a terrible scourge on the street.
I don't know. I just know I used to love Mary, and now I think she's okay to sometimes annoying. And yeah, this was a little bit annoying. What I did really enjoy was seeing the little kids.
Yes, we got some little babies.
We hear me. And Max made a bit of an appearance at the beginning of the week, and Simon as well.
Simon with his little sooty nose.
He was, because Simon. This is one of the little mini side stories, wasn't it? Because along with the big climaxes of various storylines that built up to the big bam of the week, you also had a few little rescues here and there, like Sunita. But there was also the couple of scenes where, because the tram's gone into the shop, it's set fire to number 13 next door.
Yeah.
And Simon's up there. Russ is up there, who is the other grey child, Chris and Cheryl's son, and he gets rescued quite soon into it. I'd kind of forgotten this little element of it, because it was a bit of a side story. But you had, I think it was Lloyd, wasn't it, who kicked the door down and then get blasted back by the back. It was just moment to moment. Especially on the Wednesday episode, just after the crash happened, excitement and what's gone wrong now and explosions. It was just a production masterpiece. One
thing I'll say is that Ian McLeod always says you need to do everything the maximum that you can. He wasn't around. He was actually. We saw a clip of him. He was sitting around the table when they were. Yeah.
He was on the.
I don't know what
team.
His job was at that point.
Story man.
So he was part of the team for this, and his ethos has always been max everything out as much as you can, wring every single possible, like, what's the worst that can happen, do that. That was the tram crash. They could have really done almost any one of these stories by themselves this week, and it would have been amazing. Like, oh my gosh, cute little Simon stuck in a burning building. We need to get somebody to rescue him. That could have been the main story of one episode. It wasn't, though. It was like a 5-minute segment of a week.
You had Lloyd kicking the door down. Then I think, does he go in and rescue Russ, who's downstairs? But then Simon's trapped in the cupboard up in the bedroom, I think. And you have these amazing shots of Jason going up the stairs, flames all around him.
Yeah, Eileen's like, no!
Totally put the Platt family house fire this year to shame, because they had real fire. And it was just a little snippet of it. And he goes in there and rescues Simon and gets him taken out of the window, and he's like, what does he say? He's like, oh, it's a bit smoky in there. That was his one line of the week.
Like literally,
oh, so cute.
That would have been enough for Corrie now. I think the ambition of this and the scale of it is really unprecedented in the show.
I don't think it can ever be matched again.
I really don't think so. And that was just one part of it. And then you've got John Stape being confronted by Charlotte Hoyle in the house, in what is now Gemma's house, Gemma and Chesney, and she's having a go at him because he's got this like dodgy back past of pretending to be a
Colin Fishwick.
Yeah, Colin Fishwick, and she knows, and she fancies him, and she's trying to manipulate him, and he's not having it. And then he hits her with a hammer, and she dies. And again, that's not even the most exciting thing. That's just another thing that happens. And then the wreath falls on the floor, and I can't remember which character's just walking down the road.
I think it's Kirk.
Yeah, maybe. And so she's dead. She's dead.
Change there.
And she wasn't even killed by the tram.
I know.
And then meanwhile, that's going on. And you've got Nick, you've got Peter, you've got Ashley, all major characters in the show at the time. You've got, Peter's been in the show since the 60s as a character, as Ken and Valerie's kid. You've got Nick, who's like a major heartthrob, who's embroiled with Leanne, who since he was in the show, fancied Leanne and wanted, married her and all the rest of it. Then you've got Ashley, who's got this young family, who's... Fred Elliott's son.
Yeah, he'd also been in the show for 15 years at that point.
They're all trapped. Peter looks like he's about to die. The whole thing's going to fall on their heads. You know that you've got this list of people who are going to die. Charlotte's dead. Who's next? Simon's been rescued. It's just like everywhere you look, you've got Molly lying in the rubble. You've got Rita lying in the rubble. You've got people missing. You don't know where Max is.
Yeah, it could have been any of them.
I
think probably it was unlikely that Rita was going to get killed off. And
you've got Fizz who's 6 months pregnant, and whenever a Corrie mum is expecting, you always do the maths, you always work out, when does she find out, when do you think the baby's going to be due, but you kind of forget that Corrie mums can give birth at any time, because there's always a tragedy around the corner. We did the stats, it's always 50-50 on a birth, on a pregnancy, whether it's going to end in a birth, and you've got poor Fizz, who's 6 months pregnant with Hope. They don't know that's her name yet. Who's also that's John Stape's child, and she's giving birth. Potentially, that could have been another one of the tragic deaths.
Yeah. I thought that the John Stape story was that the best kind of plotted and twisty one. I don't
think that was amazing. So can I just I'll give you guys I don't know how many people are listening to this who don't know what happened in the tram crash week, but a very brief outline of what happened with John is that he kills Charlotte. The tram crash is happening.
It's kind of like, it's not self-defense, is it? But she's going
to tell everybody.
She's going to tell everyone because in her head she's got this. They've been having this whirlwind romance, but also he's been passing himself off as Colin Fishwick, who was the teacher who died in their presence about 3-4 months beforehand, and they buried the body. So she says, if you don't go off for me, I'm going to tell everybody about Colin. I'm going to tell everyone you're pretending to be Colin since.
Yeah, so he hits her with a hammer, kills her, in a fit of passion.
Well,
and rage.
She's waving the hammer at him, and they got some really good action cam there. I loved it. And she's waving it about, and then he grabs it. She runs to the door. Yeah. He clocks around the back of the head, and it was a fit of passion. There's certainly not a planned, and that's John Stape all along, isn't it? He's no
bumbles from one
he was
murder
no plotter.
To another.
Yeah.
So she's dead, and he's like, oh, good God. And then what he does is he takes, cleverly, I think this is quite smart, he takes her body and he deposits it in like a crater. And then he goes, hey, paramedic person, I found another dead body. Help me here. And then he's like, oh, I don't know who she is. I'm just a passerby. No need to know my name. I'm just a stranger. Then the paramedic's like, she's got a pulse. And his face is like,
that was great.
Oh, God.
Because the paramedic, I think, is calling one of our colleagues, and he's there walking off, and he's like, what? He's like,
going, do. All sorted this problem out. So then they take her to hospital.
There's also, even before he drags her, because I think there's a couple of episodes before that when he's there, he's out with Fizz, I think, and Charlotte is there dead in the lounge at number 5, but he's been called out because his wife's having a baby, and he's thinking Chesney and Katie could come home at any moment. Yeah. And there was a bit where he's like, do I go to hospital with Fizz? I probably should. Or do I need to get rid of this body? So I think they do go to hospital. He comes back, pretends to be one of the workers, and that's how he gets back into number 5, one of the rescue workers. And then he brings Charlotte out, finds that she's still got a pulse. He
ends up at the hospital because of Fizz giving birth. And then finally, at the very end of the whole thing, Charlotte's parents are called to the bedside for their dying daughter, and he's there as well as the dutiful boyfriend, because that's who they know him as.
Yeah.
And they say, you're her beloved, and the doctor comes in and says, well, she's got, we've got to decide
not
whether...
a great prognosis here,
should we
guys.
switch the life support off? And he's like, yeah. Yeah, I think
It
we
was
should.
so good. It was such a moment of triumph for him, but
really,
not in a wahaha way. It's just a thank goodness.
It was.
I'm keeping this secret. It was so brilliantly
one
twisty,
of those,
that story.
Like where you have a graph and you go up and down, up and down, up and down. It was such a cleverly plotted
really
little neat story of ups and downs and shocks and twists.
That was definitely that kept me on the edge of my seat.
But that's
not
not
the most.
even going to be the thing that people really remember from that week.
No,
so
not
many other
particularly.
things happened.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder, were there any performances that you would say were particularly stand out for you, or memorable or surprising? Because for me, I would say I was, and I often am when I look back at the old ones, very pleasantly surprised by Jane Danson's performance as Leanne. And I think she was kind of under my radar for such a long time watching Coronation Street. I didn't really appreciate what a fantastic actress she was, because she's just like, you know, the chav that came into the street in 97 and everybody hated her, and that's all it was. But time and time again, I'll watch some of her earlier episodes. I mean, this was 13 years into her time on Coronation Street, and I just thought she was she blew me away with her performance as the, what do I do? Do I marry Peter? Now Peter's there on his deathbed. Do I go off with Nick? I thought I was really rated her.
This is a story that is not the kind of story that gets me going. I'm not really bothered about romantic storylines, but you know, this was the biggest love triangle on Corrie that whole year, because you've got the big names. You've got Leanne, you've got Nick, you've got Peter, and you've got Carla, and they're all in this bundle together. And Leanne really is at a crux in this relationship. The eve of the wedding that she's going to have with Peter, Nick still wants her back. She's got that danger from Carla, who has grown really close to Peter. And the scene where she's having to decide, like, do I marry? Like, I could back out. I could go off with Nick, or I could just seal my fate with Peter. Peter might die. Who do I really love? And I think in that moment she decided that she loved Peter. Like, it could have been a really cynical and easy way out for that character to go, he's going to die, I'll marry him.
I think even Carla calls her out at one point in the week and says, oh, you're just waiting for him now. And then you've married him, you're waiting for him to pop his clogs.
And Leanne gets to give Carla a big slap round the chops, doesn't she, in a hospital scene. And you've got that really amazing, like you said earlier, the hospital marriage with the chaplain. And you've got
Janice in the background.
Janice and Ken, both as witnesses.
I think both of them, I can't remember, did both of them know about Leanne's affair with Nick as well? I'm pretty sure Ken did.
But the performance, Chris Gascoigne, like, just heaving those vows out, and
so
Jane Danson, just a waterful of tears standing over him. And again, the pressure, that was the live episode when they got married. The pressure of that, intense, incredible, amazing. And again, like I said, you mentioned earlier that you didn't know, and I had only been watching Corrie like for less than 10 years at that point. But I knew that Peter was a big character, and I was wondering, are they going to sacrifice him for this episode? Could that be the end for him? And I really didn't know one way or the other. I was not sure if this was the end of Peter for this live episode.
I just love how they didn't hold back on anything.
No, exactly.
For the live episode.
There was no scraps on that. They literally hoovered it all up and spat it back out.
Obviously the crash itself couldn't have happened on the live, but there must have been a temptation to say, look, let's get all the major drama on the other days, and then we'll just have people reacting to things maybe on the live. But they didn't. You had Fizz giving birth, and I mean, everybody remembers that shot of Jenny McAlpine there going, with the baby. And you had Gary even had some PTSD kind of live strobing effects going on in the live episode.
That must
Molly's...
like not to be crude, but that must have been a right pain in the arse to do all of those lighting effects in the middle, and the sound effects in the middle of the rest of everything happening.
You had Molly's death at the end of the episode, huge scene that was in the live. Peter's near deathbed moment. You had the brilliant moments of Becky hobbling about behind the corner shop out the back trying to raid the safe as John drags Charlotte down the ginnel all in one shot. It was just so ambitious.
Yes.
Then they could have cheaped out. And I don't want to rag on EastEnders too much, But we did watch the 40th anniversary live episode this year, and they did a really good job with parts of it. I think, they had their own live birth there, didn't they? They had
Coronation Street,
trumpet girl having a baby,
set
Sonia.
A benchmark that was so impossible that nobody has beaten it in live television in this country.
But I don't think that EastEnders tried to.
They weren't trying to. But
it
to
felt.
their
I
credit,
thought
they were doing their own thing.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what they should have done. They should be themselves.
I thought with the EastEnders live this year, there was an awful lot of stuff inside the Queen Vic, and a lot of the other characters were mostly, I might be remembering this wrong, I don't know, mostly just kind of standing around outside of it, or maybe in the cafe reacting to it and talking about it. So it felt like there was a lot more downtime, but it was just bam, bam, bam in this live episode of Coronation Street, and hats off to them. They did so brilliantly.
I just think I can't praise it enough for the, like you said, ambition. I think that I'm really interested to see what Corrie does.
Yeah.
But I'm not expecting anything like this from Corrie. I don't think it'd be. I just don't think I don't know how they pull this off.
I don't know whether it's financially viable.
I just don't know how they're going to pull. I don't know how they pulled this off. I think that. I mean, we'll talk about again the production next time, but even the table read, I've never seen anything like that. The vast, huge amount of people. Not even Game of Thrones had such a massive, vast team of people reading the scripts.
I want to talk a bit about the moment of the explosion and the tram crash, because as a climax to that Tuesday episode, it was just so amazing. And it was, you had about a minute and a half, I think, between the two of them. You had the explosion in the joinery, which seems to come out of nowhere almost, doesn't it?
You really wouldn't know that it was going to happen if you weren't expecting it.
No, you wouldn't. You had, like you said, Kieran saying, there's something about the gas pressure, I can't cook the food. And you don't know it's coming, but why would you? But you had the shots beforehand. It is one of the things I really loved about it was there's this quick. What's this character doing? What's this character doing?
Yeah.
Like Rita's getting her sweets. John's there dialing 999. I loved that. He's there with his mobile. He dials 9. He dials 9, and then you get to see a few cuts of what's going on because you got Lloyd and Chris having a fight in the joinery, and then you got Rita reaching her sweets. John dials 9 again. Then you got everyone singing "Show Me the Way to Amarillo" in the Rovers for the hen night, and I don't know.
Lloyd and Chris fighting each other in the joinery.
Yeah, and then just as you're about to do it, and the using "Show Me the Way to Amarillo" was brilliant because it got na 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 boom boom. So clever. I don't think there were two booms. Maybe there was just one. But I hate music on Coronation Street if it's. Although this was in
diegetic.
This was used in universe, so maybe that's why I liked it so much. But it was so clever, and. Oh yeah, Becky shouting for Max beforehand as well. That was the other thing. And then just this massive explosion blows the front of it off. Ken's there knocked off his feet. John gets this brilliant dolly zoom shot, which can be so cheesy, but I thought it just fit it absolutely perfectly because of just how high tension and drama this was. And then you got immediately your chaos in the joinery. You cut straight to people lying there under the rubble, the smoke, the little mini fires everywhere from there wasn't any of this beforehand, and suddenly it's just utter devastation.
And Ken,
standing up. He's like, hey, Peter's in there, and a Fizz comes out and screaming for John. But it doesn't let up. You got, as I say, literally a minute and a half, and I can only imagine what this was like for anybody watching who didn't know what was going to happen, and there can't have been many
people who didn't get the memo.
Who didn't get the memo that it was going to be a tram crash. But you think, oh my gosh, this is absolutely huge. And then along comes the tram on the track. And you think, what is going to... Well, you don't think what's going to happen here. You know exactly what's going to happen here. But there's no stopping it. I wonder how different it would have been if they just stopped at the bistro explosion. So the joinery explosion.
Well, it would have been like what happened with Cal and Maddie.
One little contained mini disaster.
Well, no.
I think they could have strung quite a bit out of the rescue from the joinery.
To be fair to Maddie and Cal, that was a pretty convoluted story that involved, fires in two different places. That was pretty good going. The real big trouble with the tram crash, it's like the benchmark to which every single thing that happens in a big event on Corrie forever will be judged by that.
I think the closest they've probably come, and I know people hate this, but I think they've probably come has been the Coronation Street.
I agree with you.
Because they had the massive production with the water and the sewers being dunked into it for the sewers underneath.
What you need to remember...
Well, this was going over here, that was going over there, the collapse as a sinkhole combined with the stuff in the sewers.
What you need to remember is that what you saw was only a sort of shadow of what they had planned, and that... as far as I know, and we've never actually had anybody officially say any of this to us. We're just piecing it together from bits and bobs. But it feels like they wanted to have Jeff and Yasmin and Alia on the roof. Jeff dying. That was going to be part of
the sinkhole.
Drama. And then you've got Johnny dying. You've got the sewer. You've got Abby. You've got... the confrontation underground, the spooky weird lights, you got Roy there covering things up. That would have been a pretty good attempt to recapture the magic of the tram crash.
Yeah, for totally.
But they couldn't do it because of COVID, and that's a really sad thing. I just it's just like the benchmark of live soaps. And I also, the other thing to say about live episodes, I mean, we haven't even spoken about what we think about the idea, the concept of doing a live episode. Like, is it worth it? The only reason it adds any drama is because you think it's going to go wrong.
I know.
And that's such an evil, like, way to go into a show. But it's
in a way you're winning them on, but in a way you're kind of really secretly hoping there's going to be a how's Adam moment.
Yeah, like you can't deny that evil little imp that lives in your head, that's kind of watching to see if they can pull it off or not, and the pressure that must put on the performers too. The thing is, on the other hand, you can say a lot of these people have, theatre, live performances. They should be able to do this. It shouldn't be a big deal, but compared to what it's like to work on a soap, not having that safety net of being able to take it, and also knowing millions of people are watching you.
I know, totally.
And the other thing I'm going to say is that given that Coronation Street has an international audience, and that Swala's brought in lots of fans from countries that maybe don't know anything about Corrie or never really watched Corrie before, having a live episode scheduled for that might not work anymore, because globally not everybody can watch Coronation Street live. Like, how much of the audience I think
they've still got to cater to the British audience primarily.
Can you imagine if they had a tram crash like episode, but instead of Leanne and Peter, it was Carla and Lisa.
Oh my gosh!
With Nick being Becky
what that reaction would be.
And Betsy. Oh gosh.
Anyway, just going back. Sorry to the moment the tram comes off the trash. I love how. The track, sorry, what did I say? Trash.
I said Becky and you said trash.
I love how melodramatic it was with just like the back of the tram going into the air. And I don't even care that feels completely unrealistic. But having it fly into the sky and then slam down on the top of the cabin, it was just total Hollywood disaster movie stuff.
It really was like the back end of the Titanic. Breaking up, rearing up like a stallion into the night sky before it plunges down.
Yeah,
right on top of Rita's head.
It was. And you're just kind of getting your whiplash from the explosion. Then you have this, and rising from the ground you have Ken. And I think I thought that was a really powerful image to have Ken, the number one longest running Corrie star, standing up first. And you have this wonderful shot then of behind Ken. You can see just the devastation in front of him, the surrounding streets as well, which maybe we'll talk more about next week. And then is the end of the episode. And I tell you what, the National Grid must have taken quite a hammering after that.
Yeah. So that was the episode right before the live.
No.
So what happened after that?
Well, there was the rescues. The Wednesday episode was what we were talking about Simon and Russ being rescued from number 13. You had them starting to find Molly. You had just
lots of missing people.
Because it was after then that Becky kind of realised that Max is missing and thinks that has he been caught up in it. You got
the element of suspense that we haven't spoken about that we didn't really register because I don't think at the time anyone was worried. Is Rita. No one knows Rita's missing.
No, she's been told. She's said that she's going
out
into town to see Doreen.
Yeah.
And the only reason she was found at the end was because when Doreen...
Somebody wanted a ball sweet.
when Doreen couldn't make it in the end, she comes back to her house, to her flat, and sees Nick there and tells him, I'm going back home. And Norris and Mary and Emily all think, thank goodness Rita wasn't in the cabin when it got flattened. But actually it was. And I did find that the Rita part to the story was just that little bit underwhelming, and it was almost like she was an afterthought, and they did have to keep the drama going.
I don't think it was underwhelming. I thought it was just whelming.
Just whelming.
I was perfectly whelmed.
It wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't. At no point was I thinking, oh my gosh, is Rita going to survive? Because I don't think they were going to kill off Rita then. Obviously, the rewatch, I thought that's even less. In fact, I maybe thought that there was no way it was going to happen on the rewatch.
Rita's like, you trams, this is your second time at me.
Well, she says, doesn't she? When the rescuers come to her and tell her what's happened, she says, what is it with me and trams? And it's I just found it just that little bit cheesy and a little bit, oh yeah, well done, Rita.
Meta.
Yeah, a little bit meta. You got your time in your spotlight. Off you go to hospital now, it's fine.
Now, I don't know what Barbara Knox wants to do, and I don't know what they've got planned for Rita. But if Rita ends up dying by a tram, I don't think I'd mind it, because it's third time's a charm.
Yeah.
Because that would literally be like they've had a go at her twice now.
Mm. Yeah, they have, haven't they?
I would love it if Rita died from a tram.
I
don't know
think
how.
that Rita's going to have any kind of dramatic death.
No, but you could have her like go on. Okay, right. So here's the saddest ending for Rita.
Mm.
She gets on a tram to go off to see Jenny, and she just dies.
Oh, God, that's miserable.
I know.
Way to lower the tone of this podcast,
Sorry,
Gemma.
Everyone. I can't think of... Can you think of a better way of killing off?
I want to think of a way of killing off Rita. Thank you very much, lady.
Or maybe they just... maybe she dies however, whatever, and they just kind of like superimpose her face on a tram flying up in the sky.
Oh my gosh. Well, they already had who was it? Jack and Vera going in the ghostly bus to the afterlife.
Maybe Rita's asleep in a chair and then a tram walks in and she goes, oh, have I missed the tram? And the tram goes, no, Rita, we've come exactly on time.
I thought, speaking of death, just to veer us back on topic again.
Okay, maybe a good
I
idea.
thought it was kind of funny that there were some characters who survived this. Yet now watching it, we know that they would also go on to have tragic deaths of their own. People like Tina, for example.
Yeah,
she's a survivor this week, isn't she? But she ends up getting clobbered around the head by Rob Donovan. You had poor Sunita. She didn't have a good time, did she? She had this where she was buried in the rubble, and then she looks like she could have been on death's door. But oh no, Becky finds her in time, and they get the paramedics round to rescue her. She's okay by the end of it. And then 3 years later, she's caught up in the Rovers fire. It's like the Grim Reaper. It's like, you thought you escaped me, Perec? No way. You're going down. And Kylie, of course.
This is why I think that Rita's not got long, she's got to watch her back.
She's tricked the Reaper too many times.
When she hears the clack of a tram.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got Tina, who got murdered. You got Sunita, who got murdered. You got Kylie, who got murdered in a live No,
it wasn't.
She murdered somebody in a live episode, then she got murdered herself.
Yeah, poor Kylie. And it's funny, but how did you find Kylie in this? Because I don't know whether I'm notorious for this, but I've never really been that big of a Kylie fan. And I was always very much, go David and Shona, they're the top couple. But I don't know whether this is still a thing that people say, but... It always used to be a case that everyone was very much on team David and Kylie, and they were like a proper power couple, and they were taken split apart before their time. What did you make of Kylie in her? This was one of her earliest appearances, at her most manipulative. She was a villain in this, wasn't she? Yet she goes on to be a lot more sympathetic a character.
This was pre-redemption Kylie, wasn't it? So
well, for sure. She was blackmailing Becky and Steve.
Kylie, it comes from a long line of ne'er-do-well urchin girls who... She's not blonde, so, that's against her, but people like Lauren and Becky and
Abby.
Abby
Kelly.
And Kelly and all of these naughty and I think Lou maybe potentially naughty criminal women who have just been misunderstood.
But they're kind of heart of gold people. Yeah. And we didn't get any of that from Kylie in this performance.
But a lot of them don't come in like that. Even Gemma. Let's remember, Gemma came in as like a completely irredeemable, horrible side character.
No, she was just a lackey.
To Callum. Yes, she was. Yeah, but you can say that about all of them. How is she different?
What we get from Kylie in this episode, by her own agency, she is there blackmailing Becky and Steve for what, $5,000 was it that she wanted? Yeah. Now, granted, they were a little bit naughty themselves by agreeing to buy Max off of her in the first place, and she is kind of just being opportunistic here and saying, "Hey, I'm going to report you to the cops. You don't give me another £5,000." But she was vile and she was cruel and she was completely heartless to her sister's plight because she was greedy and wanted that cash. And I thought it was quite funny seeing her back then, knowing that she would become such a beloved character by seemingly everyone apart from me, and I was like saying, no, that's what Becky's like.
Really,
she's a wrong-un. She's a wrong-un.
I mean, you can't
Kylie, sorry, not Becky.
You can't buy children, and if you try, they report you.
Well, plenty of people have tried on Coronation Street over the years.
Absolutely shocking.
Did you enjoy Kylie in this?
Yeah, I think she's great.
Did you see shades of later Kylie?
So you feel like about Kylie like I feel about Tim? No matter what she's done or does in the future.
No, I'm not quite so one-sided about it, but I don't get the hype with Kylie. I will say that.
Tell that to David.
I did find it quite funny seeing her like this. Did you? What was your impressions of early Kylie?
Yeah, I don't really.
Did you rate that particular story? Because it wasn't one of the big ones through the week, was it? The A stories, I guess, would be the Molly and the John Stape. And this was very much a B-C tier.
We haven't really said, but Max was missing. Becky was frantically searching. And then it turns out that he was missing because Kylie had scooped him up.
Yeah. Yeah, so all this time we're thinking, is he dead? No.
At all. Now, this was an era of Coronation Street where people were buying kids left, right and centre. And I don't remember if this was like the crest of the wave or the beginning or the end or whatever, but it got to a point where it just got really dumb and you could have... I think we do a graph about how much a kid cost on Corrie?
Yeah, I still think this is kind of somewhere in the middle. For me personally, you just can't beat the drama of Terry selling baby Tommy, but I don't know whether that was just a original is best kind of moment or whether it was because Jack punched him out at Christmas. I don't know. But
yeah, I get it's one of those ones where it's like I sympathise in theory, but I don't care.
It's funny how Becky...
But I really love Becky.
It's funny how Becky was very much the leading lady or the leading performer of that story, because even looking back on it now, and I know it's been a couple of weeks since we watched it, but Steve, he was just kind of there, wasn't he?
Steve was like, oh no, I'm here to deliver the news that you're going to have to find another way.
Yeah.
To get this money, because I'm not giving it to you.
And I think he's the one that... is he the one that tells Becky that Ashley's died? I can't remember. But Becky's is the action here, isn't she? She's the one that you're really rooting for, like... Yet knowing that as she's there about to raid the corner shop safe is completely immoral thing to do, but you kind of still go on my girl, get that money, get that kid. Don't let Max go to horrible Kylie.
And I don't want to harp on it too much, but this is one of the reasons why I think that male actress and actor categories should be different in awards, because the expectations and storylines that are given to actors and actresses are different. You know, Steve delivered what he was expected. All the men were heroic, and the women were heroic in their own different ways. But they all had different roles, and they were all very gender based. And 15 years ago, not that different from now.
Even Gail was called back to the medical centre by Dr. Carter, wasn't she? And she was like, "No, my boy is in there." I did think that. I don't know, I have all the performances. I think that some of what Helen Ware delivered there wasn't her peak performance, I'm going to say. But she was still very good. Everyone was very, very good. But some of her delivery kind of put me out of it a little bit. What other kind of story bits? The Gary story.
Gary's story.
I don't think, if we'd have taken out Gary's story there, it wouldn't have made a blind bit of difference, I'm going to say.
I agree with you. It was probably the weakest part of the story.
It was most underdeveloped.
Yeah, because so Gary come back from
Afghanistan,
and Quinny had died.
Yes.
And so the explosions and the fire and the noise and the drama gave him PTSD. Now, this would be a run-of-the-mill episode of Coronation Street now.
I know.
Flashbacks and funny cameras.
Wonky camera, woozer cam, yeah.
It wasn't as much used back in the day. I think that it kind of paled in comparison because you weren't worried. Like, you knew that he was having a mental breakdown, but he wasn't in physical danger. Other people are about to die. He wasn't about to die. He was having an incredible, mental problem, and Corrie was kind of starting to explore those avenues. Steve's depression was around the corner.
Yeah.
But it was more of a sort of, oh gosh, look at this happening as well. It just didn't feel like he was in imminent danger.
No,
compared to other people. And that's not to diminish mental health issues, but when a tram's on your head, that's quite
a bit worse.
Dangerous.
I suppose it was something that launched later stories for Gary, and that was what was so good about this tram crash. It wasn't just this is the end of so many stories, it was the end for Molly, it was the end for Ashley, it was the end for Charlotte Hoyle, but it was a springboard for so much of 2011 and beyond, I guess.
This is why I really like the story, because it wasn't like the tram crash ended things, it began things. And one of the most exciting things was the Molly and Tyrone and Kevin. It
really was. And this had been a story that had been lambasted, mocked and ridiculed. The Mulvin, the Kevin and Molly affair, which had ended a year before this, don't forget, because it was Christmas 2009 when Sally revealed to Kevin that she had breast cancer, and so he delayed. Well, he decided not to leave her because he needed to stick with her rather than staying with Molly. So to turn that story, which was, let's be honest, an utter joke between many Coronation Street fans, into what is possibly the finest moments, the finest climactic shock that sticks in your brain and has lingered there in the back of my head for the last 15 years, it's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, what would you think if they made Abby and Carl, and Kevin...
Well,
it's really comparable.
I know it is, but...
Like the centrepiece of a massive stunt week.
Yeah, I don't think... I think because I don't particularly like Carl, I think that it would be difficult to have a story that with as much emotional impact for me if he was part of it in any way, because I just don't get on with him. But if it was something with Debbie and Abby, who I really, really like, maybe. Sally Dinover during this was superb, outstanding. Vicky Binns was a character, I liked. An actress. I like Molly. I liked her less as the affair storyline went on, and I think that she is totally a character who, by the end of her time on Coronation Street, was a very, very different beast to how she was when she came into it. But she really, I never was like, wow, she's one of the best actresses on the show, but she was superb as she was taking her dying breaths there.
So the week begins with her leaving Tyrone with her baby. She's not necessarily going off with Kevin, but she's going to definitely leave Tyrone. She tells him that he's not the father of Jack, and this is news to Tyrone.
What a gut punch to Tyrone.
You know,
this was what started the week, wasn't it? Really.
Again, this is another example of Coronation Street making something just a part of Tram Crash Week that would have been a major element of a
you're
story.
Not the dad.
You're not the dad. I'm going, and Tyrone's like calls her an evil slag. He gets
I like
really
the little
upset.
scene where she goes out of the house eventually, and she's staring at number 4 across the road where Kevin is, and the camera kind of zooms into the window, and it doesn't go through the window or anything, but it's like her looking across the road and saying, oh, look what I've lost. And then you see the festivities inside with Kevin and Rosie and Sophie and everything.
So she ends up in the shop. She gets attacked by a tram. Those trams marauding everywhere.
I know.
She gets trapped in the rubble, and she's there with her baby, and eventually Ian, what's his name?
Paul Kershaw.
Paul Kershaw.
Not Ian Kershaw.
Not the writer.
No.
He makes his way into the rubble and takes the baby away, and she's there alone, and she's dying.
It's not completely immediate. I mean, we knew, but it wasn't obvious that she was dying, because she was very conscious, wasn't she? She was saying, "There's so much blood. I'm in so much pain," but you don't get the idea that, for quite a while into the week, that things are absolutely hopeless for her. Do you?
Yeah. So she's like going, "Oh, there's so much blood," and they're trying to. So this was 2010.
Yeah.
So I think I mentioned that, we spoke about this at the time, but the movie Signs in 2002.
Oh yeah, it is like that. Swing
it's
low.
very much like it. So spoiler for that movie, if you haven't seen the alien film with whatever his name is,
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, but what's the Mel Gibson?
Gibson, isn't it? Yeah.
Part of that,
Melly Gibson.
It was based on an urban legend about somebody who's crushed in a way that they're still alive, but as soon as something moves, they'll die. And it wasn't exactly that. It wasn't exactly that in Corrie, but it really felt like it was informed by that movie, because that was the seminal part of Mel Gibson's character, where he turned a corner in his life, and that was like the most tragic part. He finds his wife, pinned to a tree after a car crash, and so you have Molly there, lying there, and they're trying to get her out, but there's blood everywhere, and they're not sure that they can get her, extract her. So Jack gets taken to the hospital, and
Sally's let in minus hard hat.
Yeah, but before then, you also have Jack being taken to hospital, and Kevin and Tyrone end up there together, and the hospital are going, "Oh gosh, this baby's gonna die, and we don't know what the blood type is."
That's another example of Molly dying there would have been plenty of drama for the month, but to have this extra bit of a twist of, how's Jack going to get the blood transfusion? Kevin knows what, he can give him blood, but he can't say anything.
Yeah, Tyrone's saying, "I'm not the dad. It's not I can't help you.
Yeah.
I can't give him blood." And Kevin's like, "Oh dear, it's me." And then doesn't he take one of the doctors to one side and say,
he tells Tyrone that you better go back to the street, you need to be there for Molly, there's nothing you can do here, and it's real kind of on the edge of your seat stuff, and you don't know going into the week, is Tyrone going to find out that Kev's the dad?
Is the baby going to die because Kevin won't say anything? Is Molly going to die? Who's going to die? Someone's going to die. Who's going to die?
Yeah, and I think at the end of the week, Tyrone still doesn't know, does he?
No.
He's there leaning in the baby unit. He's there against the window where Kevin is like, "I'm going to kill whoever did this. I'm absolutely going to kill them." And Kevin's there going, "Cripes, it was me."
Oh, yours. So the other part of it is that, like you said, Sally goes in to see Molly on her deathbed to sort of hold her hand. She volunteers because she's her friend. That's what she thinks.
Yes.
And Molly's there with an oxygen mask on her face, taking it off every now and then to sort of tell this very elaborate story that culminates in her revealing that it actually is Kevin.
Well, it's because she says, "Go and get him. Go and get Kevin." And what Sally says,
"No, you mean Tyrone."
You mean Tyrone? Oh, Kevin. And the moment of realisation, and Sally portrayed it so brilliantly. It kind of, the dawn. Going on a fair, I've lost the
This was
power
a
of
live
speech. It was
episode.
so good. I've gonna clearly. Yeah, the realization brewing and appearing on Sally's face
She's
as she
piecing it
realised,
together.
hang on a minute, are you telling me?
Yeah. And she can't believe
It was so
and then
juicy.
she realises, and Molly's begging her, "Don't leave me." And then Sally goes, and then
Because
Molly,
she's just disgusted.
yeah,
by
she
her.
can't believe it. She doesn't know what to say. She's so overwhelmed. She can't forgive her. She's not got it in her to say, "Don't worry about it." She just leaves this woman to
She's
die.
totally in shock. And then later
Molly
on in the week,
is crushed to death.
Yeah, because Friday's episode, it peaked. The whole week kind of peaked on Thursday. I felt at the live, and then it was not downhill from there, but it was just a little bit more chill after that point. And a lot
It's the
of
aftermath.
yeah, and I often kind of. I'm not often a fan of the aftermath. So often it's hospital scenes, police station scenes,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But actually, although there was a lot more kind of dialogue versus action on Friday, the fact that they centred it around Sally and Kevin really did do it a lot of favours, because it's you kind of waiting, when's Sally going to reveal, I know about you and Molly to
And
Kevin.
this could have been a month down the line. But they did
Yeah.
it in the week. They did the
Yeah.
whole thing in this week.
She
This
could have
is-
held on to that.
This is like 3 months worth of plot
Mm.
for a storyline. So she gets Kevin into the house, and the final episode of the week, she talks to Kevin and she lets it slip. She kind of tells him.
Yeah,
straight.
she
He
kind of
works-
saying, "Did you think she was pretty?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Huh? What do you mean?
What are you saying that for?
Yeah, and then she reveals that I know everything. I know you're the dad. I know you were having the affair.
And then she
poor
works
Kevin,
out,
he's crushed.
based on the age of Jack, that this affair was going on when she had breast cancer.
Yes.
And that Kevin was going to leave her at Christmas, but because she revealed she had breast cancer, he stayed.
I can't remember what she says. It was something along the lines, "Oh, nothing like a cancerous lump in your wife's breast to pour a bucket of cold water on an affair," or something like that. It was better.
But, and she says, "I'm glad Molly's dead.
Yeah,
and
I wish you were too."
Chucks him out of the house, and this is when he ends up at the hospital, only to hear Tyrone say he's going to kill whoever Molly had an affair with. So his whole life in tatters. He doesn't know whether Sally's going to tell Tyrone. Tyrone's devastated. Molly's dead. The baby is in hospital. What a fantastic part. What a fantastic story. And it's just another small part of Tram week.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly would have got you watching the next week, wouldn't it?
Yes!
Especially with what was going on with John, and has he actually got away with it? Because, you still got the... Could police go around number 5 and find any evidence there? They've got no reason to go in at the moment, but you never know what's going to happen with the Websters next. There's so many possibilities.
How is Becky going to get out of explaining to Steve where the money came from?
Yes.
What's Kylie going to say?
Yeah,
Is she
'cause he
going to
doesn't
ask for
know.
more money? Because that was what Steve was saying. Is it gonna? Is this gonna be another? We're gonna keep giving Kylie money over and over again. We can't do this anymore.
Yeah. What a week.
Imagine watching it as well, because we binged this, didn't we, over the course of 2 evenings. Yeah. The other problem about it is that until classic Corrie on ITV3 catches up with when this was originally aired, we can't see it properly because it's all on YouTube and it's all pixely.
We do have the DVD now, don't we? We
Only
haven't
the
actually
live
tried.
episode.
I thought the whole lot was on there. No, the whole lot's on there.
I asked you that and you said no.
No, the whole lot's on there. But we bought the DVD after watching
We
it
decided to
online.
do this, yeah.
So there is a better quality version, but it will probably be better when it's put on ITV3, and that's not going to happen for another couple of years.
Yeah, but imagine watching, because we did watch it and it's really hard to remember what it was like, but watching this week by day, and Corrie's, we've spoken before about Soap Week and Super Soap Week and Britain's Got Talent Week and stuff, those are supposed to be event television
And
weeks.
this was early on in Corrie's dabbling with event weeks, because earlier that year you'd had the Tony Gordon factory siege. That was 4 or 5 months before this, but
This was really
it was
a
really,
great
really
year for
early
Corrie.
on. Yeah, it was. I mean, they kind of had to for the 50th, didn't they? Jack Duckworth had only just died less than a month beforehand, I think.
And in the behind the scenes, which we'll talk about next week, Tony Warren was there, you know, watching this happen. Oh gosh, I wish we got to speak to him.
Yeah.
Just imagine. I wonder what he thought of it.
Did you find that binging it, as we did the other week, added to it, or are you glad that we did that, or would you like to have paced it out a little bit more?
It did feel really addictive.
Yeah, that's the sign of a good set of Corries, isn't it? That you just want to say, next one.
I mean,
do you think it's worth watching for somebody who watches now but didn't watch back then, so they wouldn't know who all the characters were?
No,
Even though, as we said, there were lots of characters that were still there. You know, you had Carla there, who was in the factory with Fizz as she was giving birth. You got Nick and Peter's just gone recently. There's definitely some recognisable faces.
Well,
but
listen,
would you get the same amount out of it if you didn't know who the characters were? Because I'm going to say you're not going to get exactly the same amount, but I don't know how anyone could watch that and just not want to then watch everything else in that era as well and say, well, what happened the next week?
I'll tell you what's really clever about it, actually, is that these were all kind of archetypal stories. Like, you've got the affair story with the Scarlet Woman and the wife, the unknowing wife, the dumb friend and the cheating husband, right? That's kind of like an archetype. You've got the
tale as old as time,
the bride and the groom, and the night before the wedding, and the cheater, you know, the love struck rival, and the Scarlet Woman. You've got the child that's missing. You've got two lots of them if you fancy that. You've got the murder story. It's all very easy to understand. Nothing needs a great deal of explanation, but if you know more about the characters, you get more out of it.
But I think that even if you don't really understand all the intricacies behind the characters and their motivations and their links and relationships, just for the pure spectacle, I couldn't not recommend this to any Corrie fan that hasn't seen it. No, you're totally missing out by not seeing it.
This point,
is number one on the must-watch list.
If you've listened all the way through to this and you don't know what the heck this is, then hats off to you. But I know there's lots of new fans because of Spoiler and things like that, and like people are picking it up because Corrie's doing a great job of marketing itself to new people. I want to know what you think. If you've not watched Corrie for a long time and you really didn't watch it at the time, and you go back and you watch the tram crash week, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd really be interested to know. Are we hyping it too much because we're still riding on the high that was watching it in 2010?
I mean, it's 15 years since, okay? So technically, there are some people listening to this now who are in their 20s who haven't seen this, who were kids when this happened, who didn't see it. Even some people who were born when this happened and they were babies. They might, maybe Jack's listening, 15 years old. Maybe Simon might be wondering what happened to him that day that he got a sooty nose. If you've got any memories of the tram crash week, please do write in and let us know what you think. And we're going to talk about the production side. We're going to talk about behind the scenes and all
the supplemental
actors,
bits and pieces kind of that were done
stuff,
for the 50th.
How did they get the tram in the street? That kind of stuff. We'll be talking about that next week. But I really would be genuinely interested to hear your memories, whether you were fans or not fans when this was on.
I want to pose the question: has the tram crash kind of ruined future stunt weeks because it will always be compared to it?
They genuinely just went out and blew everything out of the water.
But is that should that have stopped them doing it? And I'm still going to say no. If everything will always be compared to Tram Crash Week, but if they'd have thought at the time, hang on a minute, we don't want to blow our load too soon, that would have been a mistake.
Well, this is the issue about having producers come in and leave, because you can make your mark with Corrie, and it's a race to the top, and we said before about like diminishing returns and soap magazine covers and what where is it going to go in the end. There's only so much you can do, but and again, this is like you talk about mobile phones and like the technology on there. They could do so much with like version 1 of like smartphones, but they eke it out and they kind of like put a new feature in every year. Like if there was somebody who had the overarching job of like being the Corrie steward for all time.
I mean, that was Tony Warren for a long time, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he was not in charge for this. Like, maybe you would have reined it in a bit and gone, we got to give ourselves somewhere to go after this. There was nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go, because I think the only thing that feels like it might have topped it was Emmerdale Farm becoming Emmerdale when a plane crashed on it. But I just don't think that was even as good as this.
I don't know. I mean, Emmerdale has had apparently lots of absolutely massive stunts.
Well, they had the Tottenham...
the Hotton bypass crash. They had the
Hotton.
helicopter crash into the wedding or whatever it was. I think they're a bit more known for stunts than Coronation Street, and even Hollyoaks maybe have done a little bit. But I, as far as I'm aware, no stunt has ever topped this in
British soaps.
Agreed. You know, as a collective of soap watchers, which soap stunt did the best, and I don't think anyone's gonna.
Well, it's the elements. It's the storylines, incredible. It's the stunt work, incredible, and it's the live episode, incredible. There were 3 elements that they had to get absolutely bang on, and they did all of them. And all the performers did it incredibly. The production team, the directors, the writers, everybody did their absolute best to bring together one of the greatest moments in television history.
I wonder,
and it's not
when are they going to start plans for the 70th? Because it's 5 years away. How far in advance, seriously, do you think? Let's just put a few ideas out there, and maybe we start to work towards, or just put it on the back burner about could this happen?
I think all we can do is tuck a few fivers under your pillow.
Well,
you know what I mean?
For the
budget, like really. You don't know if Kate Brooks is still going to be producer. You don't know if they're going to have an executive producer. You don't know how linked in they're going to be with Emmerdale.
Don't know what the ITV budget's going to be looking like and how much Sky is going to be involved.
You don't know who's going to even be in the show.
No, I know. But circumstances meant that the 60th anniversary couldn't be as big as they wanted to. So are they going to double down and really try and do something that blows the tram crash out of the water for the 70th? Or do they just think, we can't, we'll just do something big, but not monumental?
But the 75th is the bigger number.
Yeah, I suppose so. 75th's got the bigger ring to it.
But that's another 10 years.
60th, Coronation Street has never really done very much at all for the multiple of 5 anniversaries, have they? 35th, 25th. And so they're doing something for the 65th next week. And they're doing a fairly good job of keeping it under wraps about what's going to happen in it.
Very exciting.
I'm quite excited about it, to be honest. But yeah,
well, I don't think a tram's going to fall on anyone's head.
I do think that they will probably try and do something for the 70th, and then they're going to have to for the 75th. But that's not what this is about.
But yeah, look, you know, just to say, it all sounds like quite incredible and fantastic and bombastic and kind of a bit silly. And you might say it's a symptom of soaps being out of control and chasing headlines. But don't forget, like we said, in the 1960s, they did a train crash on Coronation Street, and it was very much a prototype for what they did. That Coronation Street, there's nothing they do now that they haven't already done in a certain way previously, because it was experimental, it was incredible, it was huge, and it was creative and dynamic, even back in the very, very early days of Coronation Street. And we're so privileged to be able to watch it and see it develop and evolve and change, but still say the same in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, I think we better draw the discussion to an end now. We're already kind of touching on the production side of things, and I don't want to cannibalise next week's episodes too much, but do come back in a week or so for part 2 of our tram crash discussion, where we will be doing some behind the scenes stuff. We'll get some classic interviews from Conversation Street where I talk to cast members and behind the scenes stuff. And as I say at the beginning, we may well have a couple of new ones to add into next week's episode for you to look forward to as well. And in the meantime, please do send us your own opinions and thoughts and memories of the tram crash week as well. We'd love to be able to read some of those out too.
And if you want to know what we really found to be the most shocking moment of the whole week, you're going to need to join our Patreon. Please join our Patreon. We talk about the top 5 moments and we rank them in order of how exciting they were. I really enjoyed doing that with you, Michael, this weekend. And
Patreon.com/Conversation Street.
I hope that you enjoy it. And we've got many, many episodes of incredible top 5s to enjoy there if you want to.
Go and head over and have a listen. Right, ta-ra from me.
Bye.
Look out for trams. Goodbye.